Because God says there's a reproach on the people. And I'm going to have to remove the reproach, the shame, the guilt, the embarrassment, the feel like you're lower than or I got to get that. Because there's some, and beloved, there's some folk today that you're operating under reproach. You don't feel like you're worth anything. You don't feel like you've amounted to much. You got some low self-esteem. You got some issues. You got some stuff you got that's just making this holding you back. God said we're going to remove it today. Amen. We're going to deal with it today. But let me give you the notes because I got these 4 points and I'm going to get on out of here. The first point is, so God takes them, he takes them over to the Gilgal. They stay there, they camp there, and he tells Joshua, circumcise the men. Amen. And so he calls them aside for a time of consecration. A time of consecration is a time where you get committed, reflect, you get yourself right with God. But there's 4 things in this time of consecration that I want you to see here. I don't want you to miss this. The first thing about this time of consecration, write this down, is that this time of consecration is a time to deal with the flesh. All right. You're saying, okay, we mean pastor. You got to deal with that part of you that is hindering you so it won't mess you up when you get into the promise. Okay, all right. The men were to be circumcised as a symbolic act of consecrating the flesh, cutting the flesh, separate themselves from this piece of flesh. This was symbolic of a commitment, symbolic now. So don't y'all go out and start going circumcised. That's not what I'm talking about. It's symbolic of a commitment to cast the flesh aside and to walk in the Spirit. Walk in faith and not in flesh. What's the issue for us? There is something about us. Us. Everybody say us. Our flesh, our desires, our passions, when they are not directed in a godly way, they will hinder you from entering into the promises that God has for you. Now, I'm not going to name your flesh or my flesh issue. But all of us have some flesh issues that if we don't take care of, they're going to damage your destiny. And you don't need to damage your destiny over, young people hear this especially, and old folk too. Don't damage your destiny over a moment of pleasure. It ain't worth it. Don't hinder your progress for the temporary appeasing of your fleshly desire. I know it seems fun. I know it seems but let me tell you something. The devil is a liar. And what the devil will get you to do is think you can go be what God has called you to be and still have that fleshly mess that's keeping you down. It's been holding you back for all these years. God said, before I take you in, we need to cut it. We need to deal with it. We need to have, look, there's some fleshly stuff, some activities, some people, some things that you need to cut yourself from. Okay, y'all know I ain't getting no amens in that. That's all right. They had a time of consecration. The first thing is they had to cut the flesh. Oh, amen. You got to deal with the passion, the desires that are not being directed into godly ways. They're being directed into ungodly ways, and it's going to mess you up. And God said, before we go any further, this circumcision was a sign of covenant. It was a sign of commitment. It was a sign of cutting away of the flesh. That's a picture that's symbolic of saying there's some flesh that needs to be dealt with before you move in. You want God to bless you with that new job, but he got to fix that attitude so when you get on that new job, you don't mess it up. You saying, Lord, send me a wife, send me a husband. I will if you get your attitude and you shut up for 5 seconds so they won't mess you up. When you ain't going to be able to run your mouth every 5 seconds in your marriage. Okay, I messed somebody up right there. Talking about you waiting on somebody, but every time you get somebody, you mess it up with some of your actions you doing. You're going to have to deal with it. You want to go into the promise, right? You're going to have to deal with the flesh. Number two, not only do you need to deal with the flesh, but you got to also deal with your past. The text calls it a reproach of Egypt. Isn't that what it says? Everybody say reproach of Egypt. Let me help you here. I hope I'm going to bless somebody. And we're taping this good. Slavery had done something to the people of Israel. Slavery had done something to them psychologically and spiritually. It had robbed them of their sense of worth that lasted for generations. They always kept saying, this is true. In the book of Exodus, they always kept saying stuff like this, and it wasn't true. They would say stuff like this. God, you brought us out here to die. We should go back to Egypt. We had all this food in Egypt. It was so good in Egypt. No, it was not good in Egypt. They were oppressed. They were slaves. They had to work hard. They didn't have enough to work. They were made to do stuff they didn't have to do. They were just forced and under harsh labor. But you know something? Slavery will mess your mind up where you start wanting to be more Egyptian than Hebrew. Oh, y'all missed that. See, it made them think Egypt was better than what God had. Let me just bring it a little closer. Beloved, 200 plus years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow, lynching, housing discrimination, financial disenfranchisement, a coordinated effort to make everything black seem ugly and dirty, mass incarceration, symbols and statues of white supremacy, black exclusion, blaming the oppressed for what the oppressor has done, has caused our people to have a certain level of self-hate that has us medicating ourselves with drug and alcohol, calling each other by that vile and evil N-word, killing each other and aborting our babies. But beloved, it is a reproach, and the only thing you can do with a reproach is you have to remove it. And so when you look at some of the symbols in our country, yeah, we got to stop killing one another, but we got to remove all those symbols and signs of white supremacy, because once again, all of that is part of this dangerous reproach that is on America. America has never repented from its original sin. It was a pre-existent condition. Folk are trying to have the American dream, but we never dealt with that thing that brought us to the emergency room, that racism, that greed. It has to be removed. The reproach of America's slavery is racial superiority and inferiority. It has to be removed today. God says the reproach has to come off. You are somebody. You are worthy. Your hair can be kinky or straight. You're still blessed of God. It can be, your nose can be wide or narrow. You're still the child of God. Your skin can be dark or light. You're still beloved under the Lord. Beloved, there's a reproach on this country, and if we don't remove it, we're never going anywhere.